They say love finds you in the most ordinary moments. I used to laugh at that. Love wasn't something I trusted, not after everything I'd been through. Not after everything I'd lost. But then came that morning. That quiet, sea-blurred morning aboard the Avalon, when I walked into the Deck 5 cafe and saw him. He didn't look up when I entered. Just sat there in the corner by the window, black coffee in hand, one sugar packet already torn open beside his saucer. No milk. No expression. Just stillness. And for some reason, that stillness made something in me ache. I don't know what possessed me to walk toward him. Maybe it was the way he stared out at the sea like he was waiting for something or someone. Maybe I recognized the silence in him. The same silence I'd been carrying for years. Without thinking, I pulled out the chair across from him and sat down. Not beside him. Not behind him. Across. He blinked, startled, and looked at me as if I'd walked into the wrong movie. I gave a crooked smile. You look like someone who needs a reason to smile. Mind if I sit here? He hesitated. Gave a small, unsure nod. Sure. That awkward little response made me want to laugh. I ordered coffee. 2 creams. No sugar. My usual. He sipped his in silence. Watching. Guarded. I didn't press. I wasn't here to fix him. I was just tired of running. And for one quiet moment, I wanted to pretend I was someone else. A girl who smiled easily. A girl who believed in beginnings. A girl who could sit across from a stranger and not feel like the past was clawing at her spine. We didn't talk much that first time. He asked what I did. I told him I painted things I couldn't put into words. He told me he listened more than he spoke, and I believed him. His voice was low, a little rough. Like he hadn't used it in a while. And when I stood up to leave, I didn't expect anything more. But then he said quietly, "Will you be here next Saturday?" I turned, paused at the threshold. I could have lied. I could have said no. But instead I said, "Only if you remember how I take my coffee." And I left, heart pounding, fingers trembling. Not because I was falling. But because I hadn't realized until that moment. Until I sat across from him like that, I hadn't felt anything in years. It rained the next Saturday. Not the kind of storm that crashes against the world, but the soft kind, the kind that lingers. Like it's remembering something sad. I almost didn't go. I stood in front of the cabin mirror for 20 minutes, brushing my hair, putting it up, letting it down again. The truth was, I wasn't afraid he wouldn't be there. I was afraid he would. But I went anyway. Deck 5 cafe was quieter that morning. Muted. As if the sea had swallowed up half the sound. But he was there. Same seat. Same stillness. Same cup, untouched. He saw me and didn't smile. Not right away. I slid into the chair across from him like I belonged there. Like we weren't strangers, like last week hadn't been a fluke. "You remembered," I said. "I remember things that matter," he answered. It wasn't flirtation. It was just truth. I ordered my coffee. 2 creams. No sugar. He didn't say anything, but I saw the faint pull of a smirk at the corner of his mouth. We sat for a while without talking. I liked that about him. Most people tried to fill silence like it was something broken. Ethan didn't. He let the silence breathe. After a while, I said, "You ever wonder why people end up here?" He glanced at me. "On this ship?" I nodded. He considered that. Some are escaping. Some are celebrating. Some just want to float for a while. Let the world disappear. And you? There was a long pause. Then, I needed to disappear. That hit too close. Same, I whispered. He looked at me like he wanted to ask something else. But he didn't. Instead, he asked, "Why coffee?" I tilted my head. "What do you mean? You paint. You travel. You seem like someone who would sip wine at sunset or drink herbal tea in a mountain cabin. Not coffee. In a ship cafe. With me." I smiled. Maybe because coffee doesn't pretend to be anything it's not. And me. I met his eyes. "The way you look at me," I said, "you're not pretending either. And I don't know what to do with that." He looked down, as if the coffee had suddenly become more interesting than me. I should have left it there. But I didn't. "I used to take it black," I said. Bitter. Like I was trying to prove something. "And now? Now I take it with cream." I gave him a small, shaky smile. Because I got tired of pretending I liked the bitterness. He nodded slowly. But he didn't ask what made me change. Maybe he knew I wouldn't tell him. Not yet. Maybe he understood there were things you only say after trust is earned. Or after everything else has been stripped away. Still, part of me wanted to say it aloud. "I'm not who you think I am. I'm not even sure who I'm pretending to be anymore." But instead, I said nothing. And he didn't push. And that somehow was the scariest thing of all. By the third Saturday, it was no longer coincidence. It was habit. The ship moved from coast to coast, each morning a different city, each night a different skyline. But that cafe on deck 5 became our constant. Same table. Same seats. Same coffee. I never asked where Ethan went during the week. He never asked me either. It was easier that way, this unspoken agreement between us that time didn't exist outside our Saturdays. Somehow, that made it feel more real. "I thought about you," he said once, out of nowhere. We were watching the fog roll off the water, the quiet hum of the ship filling the space around us. I looked at him. "When?" He shrugged. "Tuesday. Wednesday. Yesterday morning." I felt something catch in my chest. I wanted to say I thought of him too. But the truth was, it wasn't just a passing thought. He had taken up residence inside my mind, gentle, quiet, and dangerous. Because I was beginning to want this. And wanting things had never ended well for me. He told me he used to be a journalist. Politics. Corruption. All the dark things, he said. I raised a brow. "And now you're just sailing away from it all." "Not exactly." A shadow passed behind his eyes. Let's just say I stopped writing when the truth got expensive. I wanted to ask more. But something in his voice warned me not to. Instead, I told him about the gallery I left behind. The one that still had my name on the sign, even though I hadn't stepped foot inside it for almost a year. He listened. He always listened. It scared me, how easy it was to let him see me. The way his eyes didn't just glance, they searched. Like he was piecing together a puzzle I didn't even know I was handing him. That Saturday, something shifted. I reached for my coffee, and he reached at the same time. Our fingers touched. I should have pulled away. I didn't. His hand was warm, steady. Mine wasn't. We didn't say anything. We didn't need to. But in that silence, I felt everything change. When I returned to my cabin that night, I stood by the window and watched the stars flicker above the ocean. The sea was too calm. And so was I. Too calm for the storm I knew was coming. Because nothing this good ever stayed good. Not for me. And definitely not when secrets still lived in my suitcase. Hidden beneath folded clothes and a photograph I could never throw away. Ethan called me Lena. But it wasn't my name. Not the one printed on the papers in the folder I kept buried at the bottom of my duffel bag. Not the one on the arrest warrant I'd seen flash on a television screen 6 months ago, right before I stopped watching the news altogether. Still, when he said it, I answered. Because I wanted to be her Lena. The version of myself that had never lied. Never run. Never fallen for a stranger on a ship where no one was supposed to know me. That fourth Saturday, he brought a sketchpad. I thought you were the artist, I teased. He shrugged. I sketch with words. He flipped it open and slid it across the table. It wasn't a poem. It wasn't even good prose. But it was me. The way he described my laugh, how I tucked my hair behind my ear when I got nervous. How I stirred my coffee absent-mindedly, even after the cream had disappeared. I stared at the page, unable to speak. You see everything, I whispered. Only the things I don't want to forget, he said quietly. And suddenly, I couldn't breathe. Because that was the problem, wasn't it? I wanted to be unforgettable. But not like this. Not for the girl I used to be. Not for the past I was still running from. That night, I couldn't sleep. The ship creaked with the rhythm of the ocean, but my thoughts were louder. I took out the envelope, the one with the name I didn't use anymore. The one with the photo of him. The man I once trusted. The man who betrayed me. The man who told me he loved me and then handed me over. He said it was to protect me. That no one would believe the truth unless it came from him. But the truth? He was too afraid to burn for me. So I did the burning alone. The next morning, I didn't go to the cafe. I sat on my bed, staring at the door. I knew Ethan would be waiting. I wanted to go. God, I did. But the closer I felt to him, the more I feared what would happen when the truth caught up with me. Because no matter how sweet the coffee, eventually, secrets turn bitter. I showed up late the next Saturday. 15 minutes past our usual time. Ethan was there, his coffee untouched, his fingers drumming a slow, anxious rhythm on the tabletop. He didn't say anything when I sat down. Just looked at me. And not the usual way. This look was different. Sharper. Measured. What happened? I asked, trying to sound casual. He took a long sip of coffee and placed the cup down carefully. I was here on Tuesday. My heart skipped. Why? I wanted to see if you ever came on other days. I froze. And I saw you. By the railing. Alone. You looked like someone who was about to disappear again. My stomach twisted. You were watching me. I was worried, he said, his voice gentler now. It felt like you were saying goodbye to something. Or someone. I didn't know what to say. Because he wasn't wrong. Part of me had been preparing to run again. And I hated that he could see it. Later that day, I wandered toward the upper deck, needing air, needing space. That's when I saw him. Not Ethan. The other man. He was older, maybe early 40s. Sharp suit. Expensive camera around his neck. He didn't fit the crowd. He was scanning faces, pretending to photograph the horizon, but I knew the look in his eyes. I'd seen it before. Predator. I turned so fast I nearly tripped. My pulse thundered in my ears. Back in my cabin, I double-locked the door. My hands were shaking. Had they found me? Or worse, had Ethan led them to me? No. No. He couldn't have. Could he? That evening, there was a knock at my door. Not loud. Just patient. I opened it to find Ethan, standing there with a paper cup in each hand. Didn't think you'd want to meet in the cafe today, he said softly. I took the coffee with trembling fingers. You always know. He studied me. What are you running from, Lena? I looked down. Then lied. Just memories. He nodded, like he didn't believe me but didn't want to press. Not yet. And I loved him for that. I hated him for that, too. Because someday soon, he'd ask again. And when he did, I wasn't sure if I'd lie again. Or finally tell him that Lena wasn't real. The next morning, Ethan wasn't in the cafe. Not at 9 o'clock. Not at 9:15. Not even by 10. I sat at our table anyway, both coffee cups untouched. Waiting felt heavier without him. Was he angry? Worried? Gone? When I finally gave up and started back to my cabin, I passed him in the corridor. He wasn't alone. The man beside him, the one with the camera, walked just a few steps behind. Ethan's eyes caught mine, and in that instant, everything inside me froze. He looked different. Wary. Colder. Like he'd seen something he didn't want to. He didn't stop. Didn't smile. Didn't even blink. And neither did the man beside him. That night, I found a photograph slid under my door. It was of me. Not from the ship. From before. Hair shorter. No makeup. Eyes still full of the girl I used to be. A date scrawled in the corner. A time. And a word, scribbled in red ink. Why? I collapsed to the floor, clutching the photo like it could explain itself. It couldn't. But I knew who could. Ethan. I found him on deck 7, leaning against the railing, wind tearing through his shirt like it wanted to steal something from him. He didn't look at me when I approached. "You've been lying," he said. His voice was low. Quiet. Not angry. Just tired. I swallowed. "I never told you who I was." "You never told me anything," he said. I stepped closer. "Because I didn't want this to end." "You thought lying would keep me." He finally turned. His eyes weren't cold, they were hurt. "No," I whispered. "I thought the truth would make you leave." There was a silence between us that the sea couldn't fill. "I saw your name today," he said. "Your real name. In a file. The man with the camera, he's an investigator. Looking for you." I felt the railing press against my spine. I was cornered by my own past. "Did you tell him where I was?" I asked. His jaw clenched. "No." I looked up at him, tears in my eyes. "Why not?" "Because I don't care who you were." He stepped closer. "I care about who you are with me." I wanted to believe him. God, I did. But I'd trusted someone once before. And that trust almost killed me. We sat across from each other, not in the cafe, but in his cabin. No clinking cups. No background hum. Just the silence between questions he hadn't asked yet, and answers I could no longer avoid. I took a breath and began. "My name's not Lena. It's Elise Monroe." He didn't flinch. "I was an art consultant. I worked with collectors, some of them powerful, some of them dangerous. One of them, Aaron Caldwell, offered me everything: a gallery, connections, love." My hands trembled. "But he was laundering stolen art through my sales." I didn't know. Not at first. I looked up, met Ethan's steady gaze. When I found out, I was going to expose him. I had files, proof, everything. "What happened?" Ethan asked softly. "I told him I was leaving," I whispered. He smiled. Said he understood. My throat tightened. The next morning, I woke up to a police warrant in my name. Fraud. Laundering. Obstruction. All of it traced to me. He wiped his name from everything. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then, "How did you get away?" "I didn't." My voice broke. "My best friend paid off someone in the DA's office. She got me 24 hours. I grabbed what I could and vanished." "Why the ship?" he asked. I smiled bitterly. "Because ships keep moving. And no one checks your name twice." Ethan stood and walked to the small window. "I knew you were hiding," he said. "I just didn't expect all of that." I stood too, unsure whether to move closer or leave. "You must think I'm a coward." He turned, eyes meeting mine. "No, I think you were surviving." And just like that, my knees nearly buckled. I covered my face with my hands. "I didn't mean to fall for you." "I know," he said. And then I felt him, his hands gently pulling mine away, his breath close. But I did mean to fall for you. The air shifted. He kissed me. Slow. Careful. Like a man holding something he never thought he'd touch again. And I let him. Because maybe I was broken. But in his arms, I didn't feel like a fugitive. I felt like someone worth choosing. The next morning, I woke alone. The imprint of Ethan's body still warmed the sheets beside me, but he was gone. Not gone like before. Gone like something was wrong. There was a note folded on the desk. One line, scribbled in his familiar, looping hand. I'll protect you. Wait for me. My heart plummeted. Because protection meant danger. And danger meant him. I rushed out of the room, nearly colliding with a steward in the hallway. Have you seen Ethan Hayes? I asked breathlessly. He blinked. The young man with the notebook? He's with the ship's security. I think he found something. Found something. Know someone. I ran. Through corridors. Down steps. To the main deck. And there, near the stairwell, stood the man with the camera. He wasn't alone. 2 security officers flanked him, speaking in low voices. Ethan was there, too, his arms folded, expression unreadable. But when he saw me, his face changed. Not surprise. Regret. No, I whispered. Because I understood in an instant. He hadn't turned me in. But he had given them someone else. The officers turned as I approached. Miss Monroe, one asked, his tone careful. I stepped forward slowly. What's going on? The man with the camera smiled like a trap closing. You have something that belongs to me. I stared at him. I don't even know who you are. Ethan stepped between us. You're not touching her. Step aside, the man snapped. And then it happened so fast I didn't fully see it. Ethan shoved something into my hand. A flash drive. Run, he said. But I didn't run. Not this time. Instead, I turned to the nearest guard and raised my voice loud enough for everyone to hear. This man is Aaron Caldwell. He's wanted for international art theft and criminal conspiracy. That drive has proof. The world paused. Then. Check it, one of the guards ordered. Now. The other took the drive from my hand, plugged it into a tablet. Minutes stretched into hours. Until finally. He nodded. He's telling the truth. This confirms it. Caldwell's face crumpled. You little. But he never finished. The cuffs clicked. The camera fell. And just like that, the man who ruined my life was dragged away. When it was over, I turned to Ethan. You knew. He smiled faintly. I followed him. Listened in. Saw a piece of your past you didn't want me to. My voice was hoarse. Why didn't you tell me? Because you deserved to tell your own story. Later that night, we sat at our table in the cafe again. 2 cups of coffee. One heart still healing. One man who never let go. You saved me, I whispered. He reached for my hand. No. You saved yourself. I just reminded you that you were worth saving. We disembarked 2 days later. The port was quieter than I imagined it would be. I stood on the pier, one suitcase by my feet, the sea stretching behind me like a story I hadn't yet finished. Ethan stood beside me. No more secrets between us. No more lies. Just us. And the uncertain, beautiful road ahead. I never thought I'd see land again and not be afraid, I said, staring at the horizon. He looked at me. And now? I'm still afraid, I whispered, but I'm not alone anymore. He took my hand in his, fingers weaving between mine like it was the most natural thing in the world. You were never alone, he said. We took a train inland. Small towns rushed past the window, the world coming back into color. With every mile, I felt something lift: guilt, fear, shadows of the woman I used to be. At one station, he pulled me off the train. What are we doing? I asked, laughing. You said once you'd never seen a sunrise without running, he said. Let's change that. We walked up a hill just before dawn. The town below slept quietly. No chases. No voices. Just breath and sky and heartbeats. He laid a blanket down. Sat beside me. You know what's strange? I asked. What? I met you over a cup of coffee. And I never even asked how you take yours. He smiled. 1 sugar. No milk. But I'd drink it bitter for you. I laughed. No, you wouldn't. He leaned in. Kissed my cheek. Then my jaw. Then my lips. And as the sky shifted from indigo to gold, we watched the sun rise. Together. No fear. No lies. Just a girl who thought she was too broken to be loved. And a man who proved her wrong. 1 cup of coffee at a time.